Hey everyone, you all know about the Chris Tyson situation where even now, right now, I feel like the first video I did on the situation, the whole story, was like a whole week back, like that long ago. There's still more stuff coming about it right now. Like even, I just saw on Twitter, like some journalists tried to like contact Ava, Chris Tyson, and they talked on the phone for like 2 minutes, then she hung up and then blocked the journalist. Like that is how much attention there is for the story. And now Ava, she's trying to keep it under wraps because, you know, for her, this whole story is making her look like in the worst way possible. But one part that's like, interesting and doesn't make that much like sense to me is how now you have like a whole new band of people calling out MrBeast for being a piece of shit just by proxy of the Chris Tyson story. But instead of like focusing more on like how he was involved with Chris and knowing, you know, pretty much a lot on how he was involved, or she, with the whole Discord group chat, they're more like focusing on like how his game show is like intentionally made to be, you know, to torture contestants, and how production wise is not managed the best. And I find it confusing because at first, you know, it does make sense. You have this story about like one crew member of the MrBeast channel coming out that makes him, you know, look awful. But it really is jarring seeing the whole shift going from Chris to now Jimmy, on how, as people describe him as a monster and a sociopath, to from his shows that he's making on his YouTube channel. Like, I'm not kidding. There's a whole mountain of tweets from people that have worked slightly with MrBeast or like have been like part of his game show, just a tiny bit. And the stuff they say about him ranges from, like not even about him, but more like about his production during like, you know, making the videos. Ranging from stuff like how the people there, the production crew, they mentally tortured contestants, to how some of them steal panties from the ladies and refuse to give it back. Like that's just like how insane it is. With stuff like that one tweet I show on the screen right now, it's very hard to prove and disprove it because, you know, it is just a tweet. Maybe if more people, you know, from the same story came to back her up and, you know, prove the story to be real, maybe then you could believe it more. But right now, as a simple tweet, it's very hard to know if it's actually true or not. Let's mention like how that is one example. If you go online, there's like actual thousands of tweets piling up together like a mountain to make up the story of Jimmy, MrBeast, being an awful human being. And in this video, I want to show about the 2 main examples that are driving this narrative. One being from a lady that was actually part of the game show, you know, like a very short 5-minute long TikTok, and then another, much longer, almost an hour long, like an exposed video from a former MrBeast employee. And even those videos do range in experience from like, you know, some game contestant, an actual employee that worked much closer to MrBeast. There are some flaws in them that seem to stretch like an issue they had off camera to how MrBeast did that intentionally to torture people because he's a sick monster. And the first example I showed was a lady that was an actual contestant in the MrBeast game show. And she says damning stuff like MrBeast is a monster and all he wants to do is psychologically disturb people. But then the more you watch the video, it's very clear like this lady, she had issues, you know, mentally that were made worse during her time on set, like having to fight with people over money, having trouble with the crew members that were meant to give her food and medication that sometimes were struggling to do so.
Then they have you sign some paperwork where they tell you that they're going to send you the money at a later point in time. For me, it was supposed to be $1,000. That's like nothing. $1,000 for everything that we'd gone through. And it takes 4 months. It was going to take 4 months to get to me. And then the people on the show like had such a hard time getting their medication. Many people, and these are prescription medications, many people, sometimes they hadn't gotten their medication for like 2 days. I know for me, every time I went to go and try and get my medication, I would have trouble as well. Sometimes just the lady distributing the medication, she would just give me a lot of attitude. Like
stuff like that I can sympathize with, you know. I do think when you're making a game show or stuff like a big project with 100 people involved, you do have to, you know, make sure that every single crew member is trained, you know, to actually help the people with stuff like, important stuff like medication as well. So I get that, but she really does make it seem like everything was orchestrated by MrBeast to make it, you know, as mentally as disturbing as possible to really torture everyone on set.
MrBeast does not talk to everybody. all his fans or anything. And like MrBeast is a monster, and the games that he does are really cruel and sick. They actually had called a one kind staff member had actually come to me and asked me if I was okay, and I told them I wasn't. I told them that I wanted to die, and one of them had called a psychologist to come on set and talk to me, and that psychologist had even informed me shows like MrBeast, they kind of destroy the contestants. It is extremely psychologically damaging, and I really think that it should end. MrBeast, like he genuinely just wants to psychologically like disturb people, and that's exactly what his show is. And I've heard this from a lot of reputable sources now. That show really is destroying lives.
Which I don't think it's true at all. I get that sometimes a person like leading the project due to poor management can do stuff like this where crew members, they don't really cooperate with contestants. But I don't think that was like an intentional decision by Jimmy to, like, he told everyone in the meeting to fuck them over because he wants to torture them as much as possible. No, I think if someone told him, beforehand, he would take action himself to make sure that people actually get treated properly while on set. Like he said, Jimmy, he was probably on set for probably 2 hours, I think he said in the video, and he's making it seem like, that's him being lazy and not caring about like anyone at all. Even though it's more like, he's just very clearly busy and he just came in to do his shots for the video and that's it. I'm sure if he knew, he would have done something about it. Because as I said, his intentions are clearly not to make a torture video to get millions of views. No, it's more to make, a fun game show for everyone to watch. But I really feel like this lady, she clearly had, unstable emotions that weren't, made better by the game show. But I don't really feel like, they were dragged out just from that one experience that was orchestrated by MrBeast. No, she clearly had depression beforehand, and being on a game show on set with a camera in your face clearly didn't make that better. So it probably wasn't the best decision to sign up for that, even if it was for money. But I will admit that one part of like her not getting medication and not being paid for like 4 months, that is pretty fucked up. But she could have honed in more on that, rather than making a long-ass 5-minute long TikTok on how everything was made by MrBeast to mentally stir people. So that's one example that was, dragged out to make Jimmy look like a piece of shit. Now for the second video that, is an hour long, but honestly, I feel like the same way, just like as the first example. But like I said, it was made by a former employee of MrBeast, which I'm pretty sure is Dawson from that one video that said that Chris Tyson is the tip of the iceberg for everything underneath of the company. So I think it is the same guy, but I feel very weird about this video because it's very clearly a serious topic, and within the first few minutes, it parodies Content Cop, which to me makes like this serious topic drag it all the way more down to just being like, just basic comedy. And then he talks about like how one of the camera guys from the video was being creepy and gave off the impression that he wanted to fuck one of the girls. So he took that and then he twisted it to say like how those underage girls, were trapped in a MrBeast set to be fucked by the crew members, like in his actual video.
During the 100 Boys versus Girls video, I have people corroborating the same story that the camera guy who gave the girls a drone was making some girls feel uncomfortable. You trap these girls in a circle and make them sleep on rough turf and get them high on paint fumes and then you try to f them.
Okay, that seems really dark.
No, it's not dark. You're misunderstanding me, bro.
I think I am.
Yeah, you are. Because if the girl said no, then the answer obviously is no.
No.
But the thing is she's not gonna say no. She would never say no because of the implication.
I don't know how a Sunny in Philadelphia meme would make your video seem more serious and give more legitimacy to your evidence. And speaking of evidence, he brings on another ex-employee of MrBeast, and this guy, I've thought about him as well. Because throughout this hour-long video, he does bring on like one pretty like damning point about MrBeast, like about the crew members, that it's pretty bad. But that one part is part on top of like just emotional stories or like of his experience that it makes it seem like really bad. But deep down, when you actually listen to it, it just seems like he had a bad experience and he wants to tear down MrBeast just from that. The best proof I could think of like how there's one story of how he was a camera guy for a period of time and how he wants you to turn off the lights, because I guess he wants you to sleep on the job, and he wasn't allowed to because they would do like a time-lapse segment and it would be pretty obvious if the lights went off during like 1 second, you'd notice it. But he was complaining about it, making it seem like it was workplace abuse to have those lights turned on and they were frying him, like actually burning him. And one of his other friends that gave an opinion and that he probably should as well, was like how that was a war crime in some weird connection.
I said, can we like have like nighttime hours? You know? And they said no, because it would fuck up the time-lapse shots. The time-lapse of what? Me sleeping? Or me not sleeping? You know, one of the things was you got to take away your clock so you didn't know what time it was. Okay, I got no access to sun. I got no access to clock. I don't know, like, the lights are on me all the time. I wasn't sleeping. I could not sleep, and I have insomnia problems now. But they might have started there. So I just wanted to turn the lights off. And I'm vocalizing to people, I wish the lights would turn off. And I go up to my friend, my good friend. And I go, they're not turning the lights off. He goes, what? That's a war crime. We're not allowed to do that to terrorists. Oh, good. 24 hours breaking the Geneva Convention, I guess, is what we're doing.
The point I'm trying to make is like how his stance of MrBeast being a piece of shit, a monster, is hard to take in when you have a bunch of emotional stories that objectively don't sound that bad, but he's clearly acting it more up to make it seem like it was a horrible experience that nobody should go through. When in reality, if you listen to his stories, it would be stuff like he was overworked, which does suck, but like everyone goes through that. The one part that does give his stance, his argument, more weight was like the one part he brought up, like how a manager, an ex or current manager for MrBeast, was a registered sex offender and was even like featured on videos.
Well, there was a known sex offender, registered sex offender, convicted sex offender, on the registry and everything, who worked there. And like you can, someone pees in public, you're on the registry, you get it. You can still have a job after you're on that's one thing. You go to prison, you get rehabilitated, that's one thing. Like if you do your time, that's fine. I think there should be rehabilitation in this country. But that guy, from what I hear, I can't confirm or deny, from what I hear, he's on the registry for doing some not great stuff to some underage people. And they knew that. And he's running a channel that has underage people on and around and is targeted to underage people.
Like all the stuff I mentioned previously, was done by smaller crew members. But hiring a manager is something that MrBeast, Jimmy, would have done himself. And when you do a background check, like almost everyone, you have to fuck up pretty badly to gloss over that part. Or potentially, allegedly, hiring him knowing that he was a sex offender and not caring. So again, in this video, it's that manager part and the neglect of the crew members, that is pretty two damning parts about MrBeast that you could make about like him, not being a good person. But it wouldn't be better to just focus on that part rather than, like burying them underneath a bunch of like, emotional stories that are twisted to make it seem like he was a monster. Because then when you have those stories presented first and foremost, people will pick up on the fact, they're very clearly emotional and not based off on a lot of evidence. And they will shut down everything else you have to say. When you probably like get your story more attention and believed more when you focus on those key parts first, rather than having those small details be twisted to make it seem like Jimmy is a monster and a sociopath, like they said.